Authorities in Syria have announced plans to restructure the once feared Interior Ministry. A spokesman says this would see the creation of what he called a modern civil security institution. These are plans to set up several new offices, including a citizens' complaints department. Syria's new government has been working to mend ties with governments around the world after the removal of the Assad regime. Meanwhile, the US has announced its plans to lift sanctions on the country. Let's take a closer look at Washington's plans. Now, phase one includes a 6-month suspension of penalties against those doing business with the Syrian government, its central bank and state-owned enterprises, along with a waiver to support investment and reconstruction. To move to phase two, Syria must remove Palestinian armed groups, take control of ISIL detention facilities and integrate US-backed Kurdish forces into its national army. Finally, phase three requires Syria to normalize ties with Israel under the so-called Abraham Accords and verify the destruction of its chemical weapons stockpile. Let's speak to Rabie Nasser. He's director of the Syrian Center for Policy Research. He joins us from London. Many thanks for your time today. Just to give our viewers some context, could you break down for us the impact sanctions have had on the Syrian economy for the last 14 years? What consequences have they had on everything from trade, investment, imports, banking, every aspect of Syrian life?
Of course. Thank you very much. There is many impacts of the sanctions. For instance, there is the foreign companies that work on the oil sector that withdraw in 2012, and this reduced the oil production by 45%. There is the freezing of all the investment from the Western countries directly to Syria. The technological support, the technical support, this is also freezed. A lot of the financial transaction has been affected by either directly by the Western sanctions, and I'm referring to Europe, Canada, and to the US, but also this associated with sanctions from the Arab League in this regard, and the indirect impact of these sanctions, because what they call the de-risk of doing business with Syria. They are afraid from the impact of the US and the punishment that can come if you deal business with Syria. So many sectors affected, like manufacturing, construction, oil and energy, and of course the trade, because you closed many opportunities for trade, for import and export because of these sanctions. This affected the general economy, the dynamic of the economy, and increased the poverty, affected of course the Syrian pound as well, on different levels.
Okay.
Now, as part of just to mention that most of the studies and officials from the EU and the US, they claimed during these 14 years that this is a smart sanctions that not affecting the Syrian people, and actually they are now themselves saying that lifting these sanctions will improve the life of Syrians.
Yeah, on that point, I mean, how quickly before ordinary people start to see the benefits of the sanctions being lifted? I mean, where are we likely to see the impact first?
Yeah, I think the first impact is in the financial transactions and import and export, the foreign investors. So it will be more accessible to the Syrian market. Now, there is many phases for this. This kind of openness, of course, increase the opportunities for the Syrian economy to breathe and to reduce the costs. For example, the insurance companies that dealing with Syria, transportation, financial transactions, all of these will be less costly when you are dealing with Syria. And you have more opportunities to new markets and to new investment. However, this conditional on how you deal with this internally. And this is the most important part of this. Dealing with investment from outside and trade need a good governance inside the country that impose the rule of law, have an accountability, transparency, and a developmental vision for the state.
And on that point, do you have any concerns? I mean, what do you think the outlook is like for Syria?
Yeah, I think there is many concerns inside the country now. Because, as I said, sanctions affected the economy. That's true. But this is not the top factor that hindered our economy. The top factor, that oppression, tyranny, the lack of justice, the destruction because of the conflict, this is the top priorities. Now, the country is come out of a conflict with a huge polarization between the society, between the people, and we have lack of sound public institutions. The current authority, unfortunately, they are adopting many policies that increase inequalities, and without any care about how to improve the regulation. For instance, now all the public sector is under auction. So any investor can go, like you see, you saw many a big deal like the port of Latakia, Tartus, and industrial area of Hesia. This is without legislation form.
So what
We
you're
don't
saying
have.
is you're worried about corruption?
It's more than corruption. I think the priority of the country in terms of sovereignty, in terms of impose of law, in terms of solidarity, will be affected by an exclusionary way of building the economy. So it's more than corruption in terms of if you are building a new crony capitalism, like a new elite who are controlling the key sources of Syria, or more dangerously, that you are allocating this to foreigner investors who are controlling this. We don't know yet about the deal. What's the deal about this? All of this is behind closed doors. And for
Okay.
this, I think will be increasing the risk of inequalities, but also increasing the creation of new oppression,
Rabie, thank you so much
which
for
we
sharing.
were happy that we have the fall of Assad.
Right. Rabie, thank you so much for sharing your insight today. Rabie Nasser, Director of the Syrian Center for Policy Research, speaking to us there from London.